the next part of this tutorial series, we're going to look at actually swinging our weapon. We won't be able to do damage just yet, because we haven't got anything to cause damage to, but we're going to actually work on the animation of swinging and activating that swing as part of our character. So before we start, can we go back into our player character, our Jedi? Open that up for me, please. And as part of the last series, which you may not have seen in the bonus section, I changed one of the variables here. So can you make sure that you go into your variables, click on holding lightsaber, and can you just click yes? Yes, I'm holding the lightsaber. If you don't do that, then this code isn't going to work until very much later on in the series when we implement that functionality. So for now, can we just click on holding lightsaber and make sure that that little box down there in the default value is ticked, please. Once that's ticked, we're ready to begin. So let's take a look here. Okay, so into the event graph. I'm going to quickly comment on this. I'm going to save that as turn on / off. The next part then, we're going to actually look at swinging the lightsaber. Now we've got a key already bound for this, and the key we wanted to use was the left click, which is bound to the input action, which is click. So under here I'm going to type in input action, and I'm looking for click. Here it is. Click on that. Line this up. Okay. Now I need to check two things first, and those two things are exactly what I checked in the bonus section up here. I'm checking whether I'm holding the lightsaber, and I'm checking whether the lightsaber's on. Now, I've done that one way up here, but you can also do it using an AND gate. So let's have a look at the two ways we can do that. So above is the first, and this is the way I'm going to use. Hold B and click, and that creates a branch. Attach your node there. We're going to get whether the saber's on, and we're also going to get whether we're holding the lightsaber. Now pull a strand out of one of these and simply type the word AND. And you can see AND boolean there. Click on that, plug them both in, and pop that in there. So this is going to check that both of these are true. And if both of these are true, it's going to allow you to swing the lightsaber. Does the exact same thing as this. So it's the same amount of nodes, I suppose. It's up to your preference on which way you do this. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to stop us from doing is spam clicking. So I'd like to make it so you can only swing your lightsaber once, maybe every half a second, to avoid spam clicking. So I'm going to pull a strand out of true and type in do once. There we go. Do once. We're then going to pull a strand from completed, and we're going to type in timeline. Add timeline down the bottom there. And I'm going to call this swing. Now can you pull the strand out of play and put it into play from start, please? So hold control, pull it out, and plug it into play from start. So here's our timeline. Now I explained timelines in the previous series, in the beginning series before. So again, if you need a little bit of an explanation on those, feel free to go back, refamiliarize yourself, because this is what we're going to be using. So we're going to use the timeline to change the rotation of our lightsaber. Before doing this though, I'd like us to set up something which is going to be, well, common for all of us. So if we go to our viewport. Now, when I put my lightsaber in here, I had to turn my lightsaber 90 degrees to get it facing the way I wanted to face. That means my rotation values will have changed. You will likely have also have to change the rotation of your weapon to make it look correct. Which means when I'm changing rotation values here, things that work for me won't work for you. So let's create something common which we can make sure that does work no matter what weapon or how much you've turned it. So click on your camera up here, add a component, and I'm simply going to add in a cube for now. Add my cube in, there's my big cube, and we're going to use this cube as almost a hinge. If you imagine what a hinge does on a door, it's the part that lets your door spin or turn to open correctly. It's going to work the exact same for our lightsaber or our weapon. So you can make this smaller if you'd like. Pull it over here and just attach it to the part of your weapon which you want to spin or hit forward. So I'm going to pop it about there. About there. Now what I'd like to do is attach my lightsaber hilt to that cube. There we go. Let's rename the cube to hinge. Let's call it a hinge. It's not quite acting like a door, but it does serve the same purpose. So hinge. I'm going to call it a hinge. Now make sure that you haven't rotated this cube whatsoever. Alright. So where it's started now, it should start with the rotation being 0 in each one. Mine's changed a little bit, so I'm just going to reset those. That's my scale. Not do that. So the rotation values there, sorry, are 0. I've just accidentally changed my scale, which I shouldn't have, but the rotation is all to 0. Which means that no matter what weapon you've got, no matter how you rotated your weapon, it's now attached to this cube. Should spin like that. And it's ready to be manipulated. Okay, back to the event graph. Let's double click on our timeline. I'm going to start off simple. I'm going to allow this just to hit in a very simple, very basic way. Now, as part of my the bonus part of the last video, I explained that I want this sword, this weapon, to hit forward as if it were a Minecraft sword. So if you picture Minecraft, when you're holding a sword, you simply just swing forward and return it back to its position. That's what I'm going to do for this tutorial. There's much more complicated ways you can make a swing, and you can change different rotation axes to make it look a little bit fancier. But for now, I'm just going to do a hit forward just to prove the point of what we're doing. So I'm going to click on Add Float Track. And I'm going to call this Swing Forward. There we go. Now we need to think about what values we want and where we want to go, as well as how long we want to swing this for. Now when testing this theory before, I believe I used a total swing time of about 0.4 seconds. So at around about 0.2 seconds, the lightsaber will be at its furthest point down, and then it will return back to the standard place, or the standard position, standard rotation, at 0.4 seconds. So an entire swing takes about 0.4 seconds. And I'm going to do the same here. So let's have a quick look first how far forward we want to swing our lightsaber. So I'm going to go to my viewport. I'm going to click on my hinge, and let's have a look at which part of this lightsaber, or which direction I want this to rotate in. It's going to be the green section. So I want it to rotate that way. So when I click, it'll just go forward and come back. Forward, come back. Forward and come back. So I'd like this to swing to about maybe there. Swing down to, if you look, minus 65 degrees. So I want to swing down to minus 65 degrees and then return back to 0. Nice and easy. So let's take a look at our swing template. So hold shift and click around about the 0 point and just make sure the two values there are set to 0. So at 0 seconds you want the swing to be at 0 degrees, which is stationary, which is normal, is where it starts. I then like it to swing down, so hold shift and click again. Change the time, this time to 0.2. I'd like it to swing down to around about minus 65. Now if that goes off your screen, that's fine, it's because it's not looking at the correct movement. So just click on this button here, zoom to fit vertical, and there it is. I'm going to click zoom to fit horizontal as well. There we go. So you can see now when you click, it's going to swing down to minus 65, and that's it. So I'd like one more point. I'm going to shift and click, and this time at 0.4 seconds, we're going to set that to 0 again. So let's zoom out, and here we go. So you can see at 0, it's standing up. At 0.2 seconds, it swings down to minus 65. And then at 0.4 seconds here, it returns back to 0. So let's give that a go. Click on play. Click. Nothing hasn't quite happened just yet, because I haven't told it to move, sorry. There's one more part we need to do for that, sorry. Oh, before going back, the length up here, let's make sure that's 0.4. So our total swing time is 0.4. Type in 0.4 there, and it'll trim this down. This will help later on if we're doing multiple swings. Compile that back to the event graph, and we actually need to tell this to actually move, which is why it didn't activate just now. So on the update, let's pull a strand off, and we're going to say set relative rotation. Set relative rotation. Now make sure you use only set relative rotation, because it may give you the option to use location and rotation. We don't want that, we just want the rotation. So we're rotating the hinge. So set relative rotation of the hinge. Line that up. There's our hinge. Now we've got the rotation values here. We need to plug this in there, but obviously we can't plug a green pin into a purple lilac pin. So we just need to right click the rotation, and we need to say split struct pin. This now lets us move our individual rotation values. So we've got the roll, the pitch, and the yaw. We need to change one of those. Now it was the green one, which doesn't really tell you much unless you can remember it. So if you have forgotten which one the green one is, just go back, use green here, look at the top, and the green is the Y. So we need to change the Y rotation. So I'm just going to pull that in to there. I'm going to click on compile, minimize it, and let's see if it works this time. So press E. If you're not using a lightsaber, obviously you won't need to do that. And I'm going to click. There we are. So it goes forward, and it hits. So let's try that again. You'll only do it once at the moment. Forward and hit. Now I don't actually think that's enough. So let's try it. Forward and hit. I don't think that's moving forward enough. So I'm going to go back into swing, and this value here. Minus 65 isn't enough for me. So I'm going to actually do the full 90 degrees down. So I'm going to change that to minus 90. Compile it, and let's try that again. Ignite and click. That's a bit better. Goes down a little bit further. Let's go back in. Okay, so that's working. Now, I don't want this big cube there. It's not particularly pretty looking, and it's ruining the look of my lightsaber. So what you can do, scroll down in the details when clicked on the hinge, and you can click hidden in-game. In the rendering options here, just click hidden in-game. So we can edit this in the editor, and we can see it in the world preview, but when I actually click on play, it's gone. No longer have that ugly looking box there. I can still use it. Okay, the last little bit of code here. Now, this doesn't matter right now, but it will matter for when we actually create our AI and allow it to take damage. So we need to set an amount of time where this lightsaber, if it hits something, does damage. So I'm going to pull a strand off here. Actually, no, I'm not. This is where we need to create that extra variable I mentioned in the last video. So click on the plus button over in the variables. Click plus here. And we're going to call this can deal damage. Compile and make sure that is set to off straight away. When this variable is active, if our lightsaber comes into contact with anything else, it will cause damage to whatever it hits. So pull that in. We're going to say set can deal damage. Pull it in. And when we click, we're going to say yes, we can. We can set damage. We're then going to pull another strand off and delay it. We're going to delay it for 0.4 seconds, because that's how long it takes for our lightsaber to come back. And after that, I'm going to then pull another one in. I'm going to then set that to false. I can no longer deal damage. So while that lightsaber is swinging, while that weapon is swinging, while it's in motion, if it hits anything, it's going to cause damage. It's going to have the ability to cause damage. Now we haven't added a box collision onto it just yet, so it actually can't collide with anything, but we'll do that a little bit later. Now the last thing after that, I'm going to delay by another, let's say 0.2 seconds, and then that's going to pull all the way back round, and it's going to plug into the reset pin of the do once. So make that look a little bit nicer. There we go. So let's have a quick look. First of all, we check whether we're holding the lightsaber and whether the lightsaber is turned on. If they're both on, it allows us to do once, activate the animation here. We can deal damage for 0.4 seconds, then we can no longer deal damage. It waits and then it allows us to swing again. So in theory, that's all there. Let's compile. Let's play. So I'm going to click, and I can't swing. I can't swing because my lightsaber isn't active. Activate my lightsaber. And swing. There we go. I can swing multiple times, but if you notice, if you can hear me clicking there, I can only swing once the lightsaber's completed its loop. Once it's gone once, and then comes back. So that's working. Now, if, like I said, you've made a weapon which isn't a lightsaber, then you didn't need this part here. Instead of having these two nodes, you could have plugged holding lightsaber or holding weapon straight into the condition, like that. There's no need to do an AND if that's the case. So if you're doing an axe or a crowbar or something else which did need activating, then you could avoid this saber on and the AND string there and just do holding lightsaber. Okay, so that's all done. If your lightsaber or your weapon is able to swing forward and looks correct, then you're ready to move on to the next video. If it isn't, then go back through this video and just double check that your weapon has been created properly and you followed all of the steps correctly. Make sure your variables are in the correct state, so that holding lightsaber variable, make sure that is turned on at the very start, because that'll immediately cause you issues straight away. So double check that. Double check if your lightsaber or your weapon isn't working before moving on.